start with our second talk for tonight. Daylilies are one of the most widely planted perennial flowers in North Dakota. And here to teach us about their special qualities is Dr. Esther McGinnis. Esther is an associate professor in the Department of Plant Sciences. She's also an extension horticulturist and a director of the NDSU Extension Master Gardener Program. Her graduate students conduct research in the areas of native plant evaluation, pollinator conservation, and plants for rain garden environments. Her initiatives include planting pollinator habitat, fighting food insecurity, beautifying communities, and diagnosing plant disorders. Esther, welcome to the forums.
Thank you so much. And I need to give a shout out here because I'm doing something a little different than I normally do. Normally, I write all my own talks and take most of my own pictures and such. But this time around, I've got Joan Zettel. She's an extension master gardener and Chahinka Bazoo horticulturist, and she has loaned me some of her slides. So we've got a little bit of a hybrid presentation going here between myself and with Joan. And I'm just so grateful of her knowledge that she has because she's really a daylily breeder and has a lot more knowledge about this than I do. But I'm starting from a whole different perspective. And my perspective is that I wasn't always impressed by daylilies. And that's because when I grew up with these ugly orange daylilies. They were right by the door, and every time I left my house in central North Dakota, I saw these ugly orange daylilies, and I vowed that I would never grow them. And some people have a name for these common orange lilies, that they're tall and rather undistinguished. They're ditch lilies, and they're in the species Hemerocallis fulva. Well, as I grew older, I was introduced to Stella de Oro daylily, and Stella de Oro is celebrating her 50th anniversary of her release, and she was the first reblooming cultivar. And I remember when I was in the Twin Cities, I saw a lot of Stella, and I was like, oh, she is so overused. And then once again, that didn't help my knowledge or my appreciation of daylilies. And then I moved to North Dakota in 2013. So came back to my home state, and as part of my job, I oversee the campus gardens in cooperation with Barb Lashkowicz. And I remember my first summer on the job, and I saw the NDSU Historic Daylily Garden in all of its glory. And I really had to rethink my initial impressions of daylilies. So looking at all this, 2,000 cultivars of daylilies and in every color and every form imaginable. So absolutely became enamored of them. And I have Bryce Farnsworth to thank. So Bryce is the individual responsible for amassing most of this collection. He was a potato researcher, and he really loved NDSU, and he saw that there was a small collection of daylilies that came on for sale, I think like 600 or so, and he purchased the collection with its own money and started the NDSU daylily collection. Now, unfortunately, he passed away 7 years ago, but we have this plaque in his memory, and it says, honor his memory by enjoying the beauty of each day. So that has a special meaning to us because daylilies are in the genus Hemerocallis. And in Greek, that means beauty for a day. And that's something that Bryce Farnsworth wanted to share with all of us. Now, before we get too far into this, I did want to make sure that you understood the difference between daylilies and regular lilies before, I launch into all these photos of beautiful daylilies. Um, Daylilies have a very different appearance to their foliage. The foliage is what we would call basal foliage, and it comes right out of the ground. And if you can see my pointer, they also have flowers on these leafless stems here. So where you see the blue arrow is, here's a stem, and it's got branches of various daylily buds on it. but the stem itself is mostly or completely leafless. So that's a daylily. Now, in contrast, a lily is going to have a stem that has its leaves emanating and radiating from the stem, and the flowers are at the terminal end of it. So it's not a separate stem. The leaves and the flowers are all in the same stem. So hopefully you can tell the difference because we're going to just focus on daylilies. And there's a daylily for everyone and for every taste. There are 100,000 cultivars or more. There's really just this massive love affair with daylilies. And there are lots of flower forms. We've got singles versus doubles. And with the singles, you'll notice on the left-hand side that we have three petals that are bigger. These are the petals, and are towards they're towards the center of the flower here. And then the sepals are further back and attach beyond the petals. And if you want to call all of them together, there's a special name. They're called tepals. On the right-hand side, you'll see an example of a double daylily. The double daylily has extra sets of petals. So more than just the three petals and the three sepals, there's like extra whorls of them. And I've got another photo of a double here. Isn't that just lovely? I don't know. This just screams summer to me. At this time when we're having freezing temperatures, to see photos like this, it just really warms my heart. But here's a double from our collection at NDSU, and this is Peggy Jeffcoat. And in addition to this lovely, light peach or apricot color, it's also diamond dusted. That means that there are cells on the petals that glisten in the sunlight, just like glitter. I want you to become familiar with the flower forms and subforms. And this is really where Joan helped me a lot in understanding the differences here. And you'll see I've got lots of her photos mixed in with some of mine. Um, so as we look at the upper left-hand side, you'll see that this has a circular form when you look at it straight on. That's because the petals and the sepals are kind of rolled back, and then you end up with this nice circular form. The second photo is more triangular, and that's because the petals themselves are held flat. So you see the three main petals here, and then the sepals are folded back, but very much having a triangular feel to it. All right, the next one is one of my favorite forms. It's called the spider. So I really, really enjoy that. Um, and with the spider, what we have going on are petals that are extra long. The petals are at least four times the width of the petal. So, longer, thinner petals. On the bottom, we have a star-shaped daylily. And you'll notice that the um, that both the petals and the sepals are flat. But some of you that are eagle-eyed may notice there is an extra petal and an extra sepal. So we're seeing 4 and 4. That's also a special form. And then finally, we've got the trumpet. And the trumpet is where you have petals that just flare out like the bell of a trumpet. So, are you starting to see some of this diversity that has really captured us? There's just so much variation here. There are unusual forms of daylilies. This is a crispate. This is fuchsia fashion, and we've got the sepals here that are rolled up almost like a quill, and then we've got some folding going on of the petals. So we've got a little different look to it here. If you're somebody that likes to have something novel in the garden, maybe have a crispate daylily. This is a Cascade, a Supergirl from Joan's Garden, and you'll notice that the petals are are curling like a wood shaving. So you can just imagine a master wood carver, as he or she is carving a piece of wood, and as they're shaving the wood, those little shavings will curl up. Or maybe when you're wrapping a present at Christmas and you are getting that ribbon to curl. So it's kind of that same effect. Now this one's fun. This is a spatulate form of daylily. As you look at the petals, the bigger petals here, not the sepals, they have an appearance like a spoon. And you'll notice that the ends here are broader than they are at the center where the petals meet. And then we've got sculpting. Sculpting is having a 3D effect. So, so take a look here at the edge here. It's all nicely ruffled. There's many different kinds of sculpted daylilies. We've got some that have a pleat right near the midrib. We have others that almost look like a bearded iris. So there's lots of different forms of sculpting. All right, colors. Now this is really where I fell in love with daylilies as I was walking through this collection of 2,000 cultivars. Just just the variation. So we all know about, yellows and oranges here, but take a look at, kind of this spectrum. We start off with Serene Madonna on the left, which is near white. We get to Francis Fay, which has just a hint of melon. Joel. Joel's kind of fun because with Joel, it's a yellow-green effect, but just really, really vibrant. One of my favorites is Coin of the Realm with this yellow peach and, the wonderful ruffled pattern on the petals. But take a look at this one, Orange Porridge. I thought I would never enjoy looking at another orange daylily again. And here I meet Orange Porridge and fall in love. So absolutely gorgeous. Moving to our last one on this page, this is Asylum Cinderella. And this is supposed to have kind of a pink bitone to it. To me, it looks a little bit more of a peach, but the description for this is more of a pink bitone. Oh, and then we get into the reds and the purples. That Scarlet Orbit is just stunning. It has that clear red appearance with a yellow throat. The spider in the middle here is Dark Star, and you'll notice the color palette is shifting. There's more blue in it, so we've got kind of a reddish violet coloration here. And then moving on to Lavender Heartthrob. Now, in my mind, this looks more pink, but keep in mind, as the sun moves across the sky, these really do seem to change color a little bit. It just depends when you take the photo. Bejeweled is more of your traditional lavender. Oh, and God Save the Queen. God Save the Queen is just gorgeous. This is called more of an amethyst color. So it's described as having a medium amethyst with a midnight purple eye. And I'll explain eyes here in a minute. Okay, the last one. Bella Lugosi. So we've got that really moody purple. Oh, it's just gorgeous. Just gorgeous. Love the name. It just has that wonderful pop of humor there. Some new colors, they're continuing to breed more and more daylilies just because there's so much demand and they're pushing the envelope. Here's Candy Cane Train from Joan, and then Cyber Dragon. So Cyber Dragon, that's really getting into the purples there. And one feature I want to point out on Cyber Dragon is this watermark here. So at the center of the flower, where it's kind of yellowish, this is what we call the throat of the flower. But sometimes they'll have a watermark. And that's usually when there's a deeper coloration on the ends of the petals, but then you've got a lighter coloration between the throat and the ends of the petals. That just gives it such wonderful contrast. All right. The holy grail of daylily breeding is blue. So we don't have blue yet, but they're continuing to do it. I don't think we're ever going to get robin's egg blue, but as we get more and more purple into it, maybe it'll be enough that we've got enough purple that it looks bluish. So they're really trying to get there. Other patterns to see in coloration would be eyes, and we've got wild horses and El Desperado with the eyes. This is this darker coloration here. Um, that really offsets, the lighter colors here. But an eye would be darker, the watermark would be lighter. than the petal. Oh, isn't this just gorgeous? Here we've got watermarks in abundance. And on the left, this is called New Every Morning. What a fantastic name for a daylily because each flower is new every morning. So that just kind of that really goes to my heart. I love these names like that. But with new every morning, got that yellow throat, and then we've got kind of more of a creamy watermark before we get into um, kind of that purple coloration. And then fear not, it's a little bit more subtle. We've got that yellow-green throat and then a lighter red before we get into a deeper red. And here's a pattern we haven't seen before. This is where the coloration from the throat comes out onto the petals. And that just really gives it a distinct look to it. Oh, modern daylily breeding is just really going places. So, we're taking different forms, we're taking different colorations, with all things to all men. Look at just the variation on it. We've got the yellow-green throat. We have an eye here that's a little darker coloration. And then we look at the edges of the petals and we see two or three different colors on the edges here. I mean, just beautiful. Rainbow eyes is a little bit more subtle. We do see the eye, but take a look at the edges of this petal. It's got a little hint of yellow to offset that peach color. Oh, now Joan's presentation goes much longer than mine, so I wasn't able to include all of hers in it, and I also wanted to make sure Joan Zettel was able to, be able to give her presentation when she goes out as a representative of the Master Gardener program. But thank you for all those slides. We've got a few more here before we wrap up. This is a daylily that has a fringed edge to it. So we call this having a toothy edge to it. This is Daniel O'Neill and green fringe from the garden. But for those of you wanting to know how to care for daylilies, they're really one of the most maintenance free of the perennial flowers. Dawn had mentioned that they're long lived, and that's certainly true. To get the most out of your daylilies, you want to situate them in full sun. They will produce more flowers, but they will tolerate a little bit of light shade. They're a little bit more tolerant of that light shade than some of the other perennial flowers, but I wouldn't go medium or dark shade. We want there to be enough light to produce beautiful flowers. As far as soils, they're quite adaptable, but they do like soils that are well drained. If you've got a really heavy clay soil and your daylilies seem to struggle, maybe try amending your clay soil with organic matter. That would help, whether it's compost or peat moss. As you're getting your daylilies established, make sure they're well watered. But once established, they are fairly drought tolerant. We don't really water our daylilies on campus much. We just don't have the resources to do that, and they seem to do just fine. But we do make sure that they are mulched, and we're going to be remulching this year. The mulch does help the soil as far as, as the mulch decomposes, it adds organic matter to the soil, and it also helps retain some of the soil's moisture. A couple more things to make your daylilies look their best, you will want to deadhead them. And what I mean by that is that you would pinch off the dead flower heads. If you leave them on, they may be inclined to produce seeds, which takes a lot of energy. Instead, if we're not plant breeders, we want our plant to be funneling that energy into producing more flowers. So if we deadhead, we are we're certainly helping with that process. Finally, if you're seeing your daylilies are starting to struggle and it's been a few years since you've planted them or transplanted them, you may want to reinvigorate them. We may notice that the number of flowers is starting to decline. That's a hint that it can use some reinvigoration by dividing them. Since daylily is a midsummer bloomer, we've got a couple options. You could certainly divide them in the spring, or you could divide them in the fall. So we do have that option, and we've done both in the garden quite successfully. As you're purchasing your daylilies, best to look for cultivars that are suited for northern gardens. We don't want the ones that were bred in South Carolina. They may not be hardy for us. Also, do a little bit of a search. So look past what the flower looks like. You want to have large quantities of flowers too. So look up what the average bud count is. The American Hemerocallis Society has a fabulous website, and you can look up all the registered cultivars, and it'll tell you about the attributes and how many buds it normally produces. Form. So look for branching. The flowers are better displayed if they're a little bit more branched. That's certainly helpful. And hardiness issues. There are different types of foliage. There's evergreen foliage, um, there's dormant foliage. We want dormant foliage rather than evergreen or partial evergreen. The foliage that goes dormant in November when we get a hard freeze, that type of daylily tends to be hardier for us than the evergreen version. So look for one that has dormant foliage. And finally, look to see if the cultivar has won any awards. On campus, we've got a bed of daylilies that have won the Lennington Award, and that's one of the prestigious awards. But there are lots of other awards that are given to daylilies. So we know that if one has won an award, that the garden judges with a whole lot of knowledge and experience have chosen them. So come visit us. We have our garden on campus. We've got two gardens together. So we've got our NUSU Horticulture Research and Demonstration Gardens. That's right on the corner of 12th Avenue North and 18th Street. And just west, beyond that garden, would be our daylily beds. The best time to come visit us would be around the third week of July. That's considered peak bloom. But really, anywhere from, mid-July into early September, you'll still see a spectacular number of daylilies that are in bloom. We've got a couple of events coming up, and I want you to know about them because you may want to attend or partake in them. So we're working with Central North Dakota Daylily Society, and they're one of our fantastic sponsors of our Daylily Garden. Um, they are hosting their meeting in Fargo, July 18th through the 20th, and we're one of their featured tour gardens, and we're helping with lunch one day. Keynote speaker will be Dave Musser from Hillside Daylilies. If you would like to register, and registration will be limited, here's their website, and it would be under events. Probably just a week and a half after that, we've got another major event. I'm really happy to announce that we will be celebrating the 25th anniversary of the NUSU Horticulture Research and Demonstration Gardens, which includes the Daylily Gardens. And we're going to have a big shindig on July 29th, 2025. We'll send out a press release with details as we get a little bit closer, and we'll certainly share this information with extension agents around the state. But we will have a fantastic event, and this should be just around the time of peak daylily bloom. So we anticipate that the gardens will be spectacular. All right, so thank you. I will stop sharing and I'll take some questions. And I really want to thank Joan Zettel for loaning me so many of her beautiful slides.
Right. Those are spectacular photos. Okay, team. Now, if you have any questions, please go to the bottom and go to the Q&A box and type in your questions there. Esther, we're going to get you started. Here's a question about, is there a certain type of mulch that you recommend for daylilies?
It's not special for daylilies, but I in general like the arborist wood mulch. And that's really enjoying a moment right now. The arborist wood mulch is when the arborist comes to a property to take down a tree and they shred it all up. It's got every piece of the tree from the heartwood to the bark to the twigs and the leaves. And For some reason, this type of mulch seems to be more beneficial than like a wood bark mulch. Another nice thing I've noticed for North Dakota is this particular mulch knits together nicely. It doesn't just blow away or wash away. So I absolutely love that type of wood mulch, and it happens to be a waste product from trees, from dead trees that are ground up by arborists. You can frequently find this at the city. Sometimes the city will have giveaways or they will sell arborist wood mulch, and it's just a really, really nice product.
How about do daylilies attract pollinators?
Yes, I've seen them attract some pollinators, but it not to the same effect as like plants that are in the mint family, um, or some of our other pollinator plants. And we'll certainly have April Johnson talking about pollinators here. I've seen some butterflies visit them, but I don't see them visiting daylilies in as large a quantity as to, other flowers, like the monardas, to the asters and sedums and other things.
Okay. When you care for daylilies as we head into winter, is there any special treatments that you give them?
No, not really. I would say the first thing to do is make sure that you purchase a hardy daylily. And then you really shouldn't have to do anything. We really do not do any special treatments for our daylilies. The exception would be if we were trying to keep a non-hardy daylily growing, like maybe a zone five. And we do have a few zone fives, which I suppose we could heap some mulch around it to protect them. But otherwise, daylilies are remarkably well suited for our state.
Okay. How can you tell when a daylily needs to be divided?
The best way to tell is look at the number of flowers. If you've noticed that over several years the number of flowers has started to go down, that's a good sign. Sometimes a daylily will also need to be divided when it experiences something called frost heaving. From time to time, depending on the winter and how much snow coverage or lack of snow coverage, we may see daylilies that will heave out of the ground a little bit. Um, and those, of course, we do try and divide and get them back into the ground too. Um, but I would say on average, daylilies need to be divided, every 4 or 5 years or so.
Is there a certain time of the year that's best to do it?
Well, you could do it in spring or you could do it in fall. The one caveat is if you do it in spring, you might not get flowers that particular year. But it doesn't harm the plant if you do it in spring. So we've also done quite a bit of dividing in August and early September, and that's been quite successful for us too.
How about do you ever collect the seed pods that have the seeds inside and do you ever grow them out?
I don't. I don't. I'm not a daylily breeder. Um, Now I know there's probably one or two daylily breeders on, including Joan. So I never do that. There's just so much to do in summer, Tom. I know you and I spend a lot of time on
Uh,
conference calls. So yes, I don't really collect the seed pods, and I don't have any knowledge of daylily breeding and growing them on.
yeah, you'd have to. I I think there in Fargo, that'd be a hard place to do breeding because there's got like so many different varieties. How do you control the pollination? It'd be possible. So, okay, here's a question. Okay, this is a very negative person we have here today. Uh, uh, they believe in your ditch lily idea. What's the best way to get rid of ditch lilies?
I'm a big fan of Roundup. I should say glyphosate, which is the active ingredient. So um, if you're not opposed to using an herbicide, glyphosate would be the way to go. I don't think 2,4-D would take it out because if you think about it, we've got daylilies being somewhat related to the grass family. It's not in the grass family, but it is a monocot. So I don't believe 2,4-D would take it out, but using something non-selective like glyphosate might do it. Um, Otherwise, it's digging them out if you're organic. I suppose there is the potential that you could use iron. There's some people that have been using iron when they're growing organic, and maybe that could kill the ditch lilies. But I don't have, great suggestions for organic other than smothering, digging them out or smothering them.
Person asks, how does a daylily get its name? Is there any rules about that?
So how did the daylily get its name? And that's because of the flower. You'll notice that the flower opens and it only blooms for one day. And if you look at the meaning of hemerocallis, it's beauty and day. So it's
Right.
flowers open for one day.
Now, and then bring it down to another level, like Stella de Oro. How did that get the name? Is there like the American Humoral Callus Association decides on the name, the variety names?
It would be the breeder that
The-
decides it, and then they register it with the American Hemerocallis Society.
Okay. How about somebody has a question about the yellow? What's the variety that has yellow coming out from the throat and onto the petals? Eh, Do you know
Um,
what that is? I can't
I,
remember that one.
I don't think there was a name on that one, so I don't know the name
Oh,
on it. But I'm wondering if maybe Joan might remember. So that was the one where the throat color was coming out on the petals. So I don't have the name of that one.
okay, so maybe this person can send Esther an email and we can forward that to Joan and see if she knows what it is.
Sure.
Do people grow daylilies from seed?
Yes, the breeders do. So they do.
Okay,
I mean, it does take, longer. I've never
yeah.
grown one from seed, not when I have, this robust root system that we can propagate.
Growing from seed, you're not sure the flower type or
Th-
color, right?
that's right, because you would then have a father. When you have a seed, you have genetic material from the pollen and you have genetic material from the mother plant. So you're going to get a combination and you don't know necessarily what you're going to get. But, some people love that. Some people, love the surprise of it.
Okay. And as far as cleaning up the daylily bed, do you do that in the fall or the spring?
You can do it in either time. I actually prefer cleaning it up in spring from the standpoint that, leaving the foliage in place traps the snow, which is a good thing. And it also could, protect if there are any pollinators in the area. So I'm a big proponent of not cleaning up perennials until spring.
Question about what was the website that you mentioned for checking plants? I don't know
The
what that means.
American Hemerocallis Society, or you could look up American Daylily Society. I think they've got both names now. So just Google American Daylily Society, and they will have various resources where you can look up daylilies by name, and it'll give you usually a picture of it and then some of the salient characteristics.
Hey, are daylilies toxic for cats? Ever heard that?
I'm I don't know about cats. I do know that we can eat the
Oh,
buds and the flowers. I think the Chinese may even eat it. I don't know about cats. You can look that up by going to the ASPCA because they have a really nice website talking about which animals are toxic to cats and dogs.
how about could they be toxic to deer? Because that could be a bonus. It's, I'm just reading.
Okay, okay, Tom.
What do you do to control deer? Is that a problem for daylilies?
I haven't noticed there being a problem with our daylilies. I don't think we even treat our daylilies, to tell you the truth. Now, the rest of the plants in the garden, we use liquid fence, which is like a combination of putrid eggs and garlic, really smelly stuff. But I don't think we treat our daylilies, to tell you the truth. The bigger issue is that we have a lot of jackrabbits that hide in the daylilies, and then I'll take a tour through the garden, and then we scare them, and then these jackrabbits will pop out and actually kick kids. I've had this happen. So that's that's what I'm seeing are
Really?
the jackrabbits hiding in them.
It's a
I thought I had
battle,
a
huh?
lawsuit on my hand when this one uh, jumped out and hit a kid.
Okay. I got Jones on, and she says that variety with that yellow, special yellow coloring is called Sweet Miss Rose. Sweet Miss Rose. How about Esther? Do you got a comment about where would be a good place to buy daylily? Any general ideas
Well,
locally
I don't
or
want to
on a
recommend
catalog?
one source or another. Um, Obviously, I'm a big fan of independently owned garden centers. I like to keep business in North Dakota when I can, and they usually have a pretty robust selection. But if you want the specialty ones, then you do have to go online, and there are a number of different, daylily websites where that's all they do is sell daylilies.
Okay. Well, I got a people are commenting that the true lily is very toxic to cats. So cat lovers be prepared for that. Be warned. The true lily, but nobody's commenting about the day lily, but you can
And with
find
the
that information.
daylily, they moved. It used to be in the same family, I believe, as lily or lilium, but I believe they've moved that now into a whole different family of plants, so they're not as closely related as we once thought.
Okay. All right. I think we got all the major questions covered. And if we did miss your question, please feel free to contact me or definitely contact Esther and or contact your local county educator and they can help you get your answers. So everybody, let's take about a 2-minute break and then we're going to talk about pollinators. Thank you, Esther. That was tremendous. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you, Joan.
Yeah. Wow, Joan.